want to do an unboxing of these because I just appreciate when brands kind of do a decent job. Had a lot of bad experiences with the P&W brands who just don't seem to care about the unboxing experience. So this is kind of cool. So I bought these from Ealdwine, I think is how they go, or how they call their name. Sort of like it's spelled way different, but it's sort of spelled or pronounced like Alden. But I think it's Ealdwine. But the guy over there, Matt, not a huge on the history of this company, but like a stockist, a couple guys, and I believe, if I remember correctly, one of them unfortunately passed away from cancer. So I believe now it's just Matt, but he sent you a little thank you card. I appreciate that. It's kind of cool, that little touch. I've had the same with a few other places. One of them that comes to mind is East West Apparel in the UK. Jamie over there kind of does a little thing. Same deal where you get like a little personalized thank you card. It's kind of cool, you know, takes a second, and it's kind of a nicer experience. So you get shoe bags, I should say. You know, I think those are kind of nice for storage. And then, you know, unlike the P&W brands who, you know, the apologists will say, well, they're, you know, work boots. Well, when you're making $700 Wickett and Craig boots, they're not so much a work boot anymore. They're kind of becoming a heritage fashion boot. And I think if you're going to get in that space, you should kind of do stuff like this. But you got nice packaging as far as this tissue paper protects them, keeps them separated. Bags, you guys hopefully saw my videos. Viberg does this too. So you have a plastic bag that keeps the shoe or boot in good shape. And then in this case, they even put a piece of cardboard inside of this tissue paper to again further separate the two shoes or boots, if these were boots. And then another bag, obviously. And then you end up getting the two, you know, boot or shoe. These are shoes, but you get them and they're not trashed and scraped up, because even if they're shifting around in the package with the plastic bags and the tissue paper, they're not able to scuff each other up. And, you know, it's such a little amount of effort to do this, but somehow brands just can't handle it. And, you know, again, thinking of the Pacific Northwest, they just don't seem to put any effort into it. You know, Nicks and Whites is really what I'm saying. Those two brands just don't seem to care. And I think it's silly when they charge so much for their product and don't put in the effort. That said, Alden does. Or at least, you know, when they're sold through Ealdwine Rayleigh, I guess. I don't know. But check this out. So, similar, but quite a bit different technically than those eBay tassel loafers I got that were really old. Supply and Advise makeup Alden tassel loafer on the Aberdeen last. I had to pull up the listing just to get all this correct. So this is the Alden X Ealdwine, the model number. And again, I think this is a specific makeup for them, but it's a D0205F. They call it the Chatham, I think is how you would say that. And it's a leisure handsewn loafer, unlined navy suede. If you look closely there, it has the handsewn mock toe or whatever stitch where it kind of puckers a little bit. I think it looks really cool. I did that video on those old Allen Edmonds loafers I have, and the door knock or whatever, and they have the same thing. This is the Leydon last, Leydon, and I guess I'll throw it up in the video, but there's like a chart that kind of shows all the Alden lasts from narrowest to widest toe, and this is a little further in, one or two, if I remember from memory, from the Aberdeen. The Aberdeen was the other blue tassel loafer I had, and those were the narrowest toe, which is why they're kind of problematic for me. But hey, I'm wearing them right now, and you know, they're doable. They're just not as comfortable as these. Unlined Vamp is what makes this a leisure model. I'll try to show that here in a second. I'm just going through the specs. They call this a bark tan hand-sewn mock stitch, so I guess that's not white thread. It does look a little bit darker on the mock toe. Obviously a 360 flat welt, antique welt, and sole edge. Okay, I guess that's like the coloring of it versus like natural leather. Single flex leather outsole, so yes, this is a leather sole. Dovetail heel is what they call this on shoes with footwear, where you have the little rubber thing in the corner for, I guess, a little bit better grip, and maybe is a little bit tougher than leather as far as wear. It's a kind of two pieces where you have the leather insert there, and then they have that cool detailing there with the brass tacks. Made in Massachusetts, obviously, because it's Alden. And so here's the interesting thing. So I was talking with Matt via email, and he told me, they say on the site to order half down. I'm like, are you sure? Because I bought the Tassel Loafer. I mentioned that shoe that I had, also an 11D, and said it kind of doesn't work. As I've said, I'm making them work, but they're definitely narrower in the toe than I'd want. And I thought, well, this is a little bit of a wider last, but will it be a problem? And he basically said, because, I don't know if he was really talking too much about the last being different, but he was saying because this is a leisure model with the Unlined vamp, and it's suede. The other pair is suede too. But the key difference is the Unlined vamp. He basically said it really will stretch, and you want them quite tight when they're brand new because they're going to stretch. And, if they're, like, I guess, not as tight, you're going to have problems. And that actually kind of rang home to me with my situation with the Oak Street Navy CXL. They're actually in a box back there on some of these last few videos because I keep thinking I'm going to sell them. I only went half down on those instead of a full down, and those in 11D are kind of too much heel slip. So I'm like, okay, based off what he's saying, makes sense, and you can see the Unlined vamp. Let me move this light over here so it's a little bit easier to see. So if you look in there, I guess the best way to see, you see where it goes from tan from around the heel area to blue as you get towards the toe. It's because there's no lining past that little point. The other pair, sorry, I only have two hands here to try to show all this, but the other pair I have, you could see the brown will go all the way down to the toe, if I had the camera inside the shoe, whereas this one, it ends kind of right there. So the lining ends right here. And so this is all just the one layer of suede. And that's what makes it a leisure model for Alden, being kind of softer and more flexible. And it's real. I tried these on, so kind of learned something with that Truman video. I am always going to put on the footwear I buy before I do a video on it, because that was a weird set of boots, were the defective ones I sent back to them. But like my initial reaction was all over the place, where I was like, these are screwed up. And I think that was the video I finally actually posted, my original reaction. But then I looked at them closer and compared them and was kind of thinking maybe they're okay. And then I put them on and I was like, holy crap, these are completely defective. They're unwearable. I can't even lace them up properly because the shaft was so tight because it was lasted wrong. They're completely defective. And if I had put them on immediately before even trying to film a video for like an unbox, I would have known immediately they're defective, and then all the rocking the boot and showing the other issues with it wouldn't even have mattered because they were completely dead on arrival just on the poor lasting. So I'm like, I'm not going to do an unboxing on these and talk about them without knowing how they work. And that's kind of intuitive, but there's so much this unboxing stuff these days. Just a lesson learned. So I didn't want to say anything about these until I knew they fit correctly, because then it's like the whole video is garbage. So I tried these on already and just kind of carefully put them back in the box. They're very comfortable. So just like he said, they are snug. Like I can see my little toe kind of push out a little bit here like it does on most because of the way my foot's shaped. And my big toe is kind of pressing into the side here. But it's not painful, and such thin suede, which is a good case in this situation with a loafer. You don't want heavy and thick. That's not what a loafer is. It's a kind of a comfortable, casual shoe. It's great. Like it's not like a marketing thing. Like, they literally are really comfortable. So I'm certain an 11D is the right size for me, half down, in this particular makeup, with the laid in last and the leisure whatever vamp area. I'm curious about some of the other lasts, like the Coplay, I think, which goes further to the spectrum, and I'll throw that picture up again of the wider toes, just because I have kind of wider toe box, needs, I guess, with my foot shape. But I wonder if the Coplay could become maybe too wide in the toe, but with Alden's great lasts being these are combination lasts like everyone, all the others. You can see it again in here where it says BD. That's the Alden Magic down there in the corner. You see down there it says BD. Here, I'll get this close to the camera. So that's what Alden has that seemingly no other brand can, for whatever reason, figure out. I don't understand why nobody else does it. So that has a B heel and a D forefoot. This has great heel control. There's no slop. So many of the other brands, especially in the boot space, are horrible with really loose heels. They just don't get it. And everybody's all pushing these, I don't know, for like, who has heels this big? I don't know. I think of, most of the P&W lasts, the Truman 79 lasts. I've heard the Grant Stone, whatever the diesel boot is built on. Everyone says the heels are kind of loose. Alden gets it. You got to have some heel control, and with this kind of narrower heel, it really holds your foot, which is great for a loafer like this because you get a lack of heel slip. There's movement, like, kind of, I think like a cowboy boot where you want a little bit of heel slip. I step and I can kind of feel my heel move slightly, but it doesn't move up enough that it feels like it's going to fall out. Whereas with some of my Rancourts, my heel doesn't pop out, but it definitely goes up quite a bit as I walk. It's the pair that I just recently got that has the really thick Vibram rubber sole. There's definitely maybe a little more movement. There's some slip there that is maybe not great. And then the Oak Streets, legit, my foot, if I walk quickly and I'm not careful, my right heel will just pop out of the shoe as I walk, and it's basically defective fit for me. So I think that's the pair why you want to go way down, one down, to kind of smash your foot in there so it can't get out at the back, but then your toes are crushed. So it's that Oak Street pair just is not working for me. These have the magic that justifies the price. So, go to I'll post a link to their site. This is like $700 and something loafer, but it's worth it. This feels so unbelievably comfortable compared to like basically anything. Like they have the right hold, but they're super soft. The suede is amazing on, the roll around the heel area. It's smooth. It's like butter. They're lightweight because of the construction, the lack of lining. They breathe. They're just freaking awesome. The leather sole, I love leather soles. It's super flexible. I don't even understand like what they're doing different, because those Oak Streets that are back there have a single leather sole too. They're not Goodyear welted. They're whatever, Blake stitch, because they're moccasin construction. But it's such a stiff sole. This sole actually flexes when you walk around. And I haven't walked around outside. There's a little scratch here, but just walk around the carpet. But they're just great, and I don't know, like everybody's always like crapping on the construction, this or that. Like, I don't know. It seems like they're loafers. They do a leather footbed instead of the split leather like the indie boot, but they know what they're doing. It's not, they're old. They're from 1884, and maybe some of the details, some of the stitching is a little bit rough, but when you put them on, you don't even care about that. It's just like, holy shit, this is a really comfortable shoe. So I think it's worth it. Here's they do the branding of the stockist. I think it's kind of neat. So you can see Ealdwine right there. Just love this. I had looked at the Grant Stone Traveler in the navy suede. I think Stridewise, Nick over there, had done a video on them, and they look pretty good. This looks better. I guarantee these are more comfortable. And I don't know, they hit right. They're expensive, yeah, but you know, sometimes you gotta pay for greatness. And you know, shill tubers who focus on weird, nuanced material things instead of the fit are weird people, you know? My issue with so much of my criticism of different footwear is because they're not comfortable, or the fit's strange, or the last is off, whatever. Because like literally when it comes down to it, it's the comfort of the thing on your foot. And if you save $300 buying a copycat of this made by another brand, but it's not comfortable, what's the point? Like, you missed the whole message. Like, you lost the plot, whatever. Like, this is perfect. They took the lining out because generally a loafer is a casual thing and you don't want heavy duty. I don't even think the guy wearing these to the office all year round and walking in the city necessarily needs the lining and the heavier shoe. And for summer, like there's no, like, this is perfect. You don't want the heavy lining. I'm a guy who likes to wear my loafers sockless. Maybe sometimes with a thin no-show sock, but those piss me off half the time because they end up sliding down your heel and then they slide under your foot. So I'm not a huge fan of those. This completely smokes a lined loafer. It's not as comfortable as maybe a flip-flop where your toes can literally go anywhere, but it's kind of more like that vibe. And I do love my Rancourts, but they're not even on the same lane. Like, this is a completely different level of comfort. As expensive as these are, I don't even know if I'll ever buy a Rancourt again, because I think I would rather spend, you know, 2 to 3 times as much, well, 3 times as much money, because I usually buy my Rancourts on sale, on another Alden loafer, because they're that good. Maybe it's just because I'm an old man now, or becoming an old man. I don't know, but I have no regrets on this at all. And, you know, my attention to detail, I started to look at some of the welt stitching when I opened them, and I was like, it's a little bit rough. And then I put them on, and I didn't care, because the comfort completely blows everything away. And visually, I think they look awesome. So that's kind of my initial impression after taking these out of the box. Oddly enough, we've had a couple really cool days, so I'm going to not be wearing these until really tomorrow. And then once I've had a few wears in, I'll give you kind of a, I guess, impression after wearing them out a bit. But I'm trying to take advantage of the 70s we've been in to wear boots again. I wore my 310s in natural, or English tan Dublin yesterday. And once we're back in the 90s in a few days, I'll definitely be wearing these sockless with shorts and freaking enjoying the summer. Cheers.